that again. Right. I think we're live now. Yep, cool. We're live now. All right. So, second time doing this. Welcome everyone to the True Black channel once again. We got the brother Yah is very real with us on the topic of the black origins of Israel. Now, I was saying just when I thought the cameras were on, but they weren't actually on. I hadn't hit the go live button. But I was saying that this topic I've been running away for the most. I've been running away from this topic for the most. You hear lots of people talk about it. You know, we were the Hebrew Israelites. But for some reason, I just decided, do you know what? This is too hot a topic for me. Way too hot a topic. So I'm just gonna like we all do, put this to one side and not touch this. It's too controversial. It divides too much. And I don't know anything about it. Plus, let me be honest. Let me put my cards on the table now. Not just that I don't know anything about it, but I actually don't buy it. I don't buy it. I really thought this is a no, like this is a non-starter. There's no way we were involved in that part of the world. But do you know what? I'm so ashamed of myself. I am so ashamed of myself. But not just because of what you're about to hear tonight from Yah is very real, but because it just makes so much sense. You don't have someone fighting for Egypt as a black space and then looking across the border at Israel and saying, no, they definitely weren't black. You know, we can't go there. So when I look back, I think, what was that about? What the heck was that about? Why am I artificially separating it? It's like it would be like looking at Spain and saying, or looking at the French and saying, well, we know they were white Caucasians, but Germany? No, what the heck? Anyway, I'm doing the most there. I need to let Yah come in here and introduce himself. Yah, I'm gonna say, can you please do that right now? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your journey as a researcher and as a social media content creator.
Of course. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm so happy to be here. My name is Brother Dens, but you know, the people on the internet know me as Guys Very Real. I've been making videos on this content for, I would say, about just over a year right now, just like, you know, over a year. I've been in this truth for, I would say, you know, around the same time, around over a year. It was, I mean, I'll give a quick rundown of my testimony. You know, just very quickly, very brief.
Good. Please do.
Yeah, it was actually, you know, I was living a very sinful life. I was living a very, very evil life. And I was out of uni, well, last year of uni, and I was on Discord. And this white lady, an old white lady, she hits me up, and we were just talking about that random stuff. And she tells me that the real Israelites of the Bible are a black people. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? I'm black, right? So I'm like, what do you mean? That makes no sense. I've grown up Christian my life. I was a Catholic for 22 years. It makes no sense. I've been told that these people were Mediterranean, or what's it called, or from the Levant, so they would be Middle Eastern, so or even white, you know, because like in a Catholic church, you're always looking at this white man on a cross in front of you, so you associate with that. So you're like, it makes no sense. Why would they be black? But she shows me the evidence. She shows me the kingdom of Judah in the 17th century. She shows me the transatlantic slave trade and biblical scripture that links with it. And it gets my cogs, you know, it gets me thinking. It gets me inquiring. So I dig into these things, and slowly but surely, the lies start to unravel. It's like things start adding up. Like, you know, I look at the camp members. Well, I mean, the movement is called Black Hebrew Israelites, and there are a lot of camps. But I look at what they're saying, and I look at the prophecies. I look at the maps. I look at old maps. I look at the etymology of words. I look at, you know, I look at scripture, and everything seems to add up. Everything starts to make sense. And the thing that broke everything for me was, well, we'll talk about it later, but the thing that solidified that they were black 100% without a doubt is that the Israelites and the ancient Egyptians were constantly mistaken for each other throughout the Bible. It happens many times throughout the Bible. It happened to Moses, it happened to Paul, it happened to Joseph, it happened to the Israelites as a whole in when the Canaanites, when they were burying their father Joseph. So I already knew that ancient Egypt was black, you know, thanks to YouTubers like True Black and King's Monologue and others. I already knew that the ancient Egyptians were black, but then to realize that maybe the Israelites were black also, it changed my worldview. So I mean, I just delved into this subject, and every single day, non-stop for a year, I was just researching. Every single day, did not stop. Every single day in, day out, reading the Bible, going to look at old maps, looking at the etymology of words, looking up the Hebrew words, looking up the Greek, looking up looking up prophecies, looking up ethnic groups, just putting all of these pieces together, and it all made sense. Everything made sense. So I'm here now, 2000, almost 2,300 subscribers later. I was making short videos, obviously meme videos. Some of them went viral. I was making racist versus Israelite cartoons, and those.
Jesus isn't black? How could you blacks ever think you were the Israelites? Say something unique.
Why does this Greco-Roman terracotta sculpture of a Hebrew look like a black person? Why does this Egyptian sculpture of a Semitic slave look like a black person?
Because...
Why do these Judean prisoners of war look awfully Negro-like? Why does Tacitus, a renowned 1st century Roman historian, say that many assured him that Jews were descended from Ethiopians? Why did Karl Marx say the Israelites were Negroes in a letter from the 30th of July, 1862? Why does that fact bother you so much? Why do you think Jesus and his family escaped into Egypt, where they wouldn't be spotted? The Israelites and Egyptians looked similar.
Went viral on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and it started blowing up. It started to generate a conversation, and I was like, okay, well, clearly other people want to know about this, so I have to go into more detail. So I started a series, 100 Proofs the Israelites Were Black, and I believe that I collected enough information and data to prove without a shadow of a doubt that they were indeed a black people and still are a black people. So that's where I am right now, and I'm so happy to be here. So thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. Can I call you? What do I call you? Because we know Yah actually refers to the Most High.
The Most High, yeah.
Who I respect myself, being a Christian, and you do obviously yourself. So I can't refer to you in short as the Most High, can I?
Yeah,
so what am I going to be referring to you as for this duration?
Just call me Dens. Dens, brother.
Dens. Okay, let's go with Dens. Trill Black meet Dens. Dens meet Trill Black. Okay, all right. So that was a very good introduction. Now, Dens, sorry if I missed it. My mind was whirring 1,000 miles per hour as you were speaking there, because you said quite a few things there. But did you say when that lady spoke to you and she said what she said, was that the minute that you would say, quote unquote, gave your life to Christ or became a Christian?
No. I was so I was born a Catholic. I was always raised in a Catholic church, but I was always raised to believe in a white Jesus. I was always I went to church every Sunday. Well, I mean, I went to a Pentecostal church first, but then we went to Catholic. I mean, it was both, with an African household, you go like sometimes you go to Pentecostal churches, which is mainly full of black people, a pastor, stuff like that. But you also go to the Catholic church, where it's what's it called, a priest, a whole sermon, the altar and everything like that. So I would say 80% was mainly in the Catholic church, but sometimes 20% I was in a Pentecostal church, right? But for 22 years I was a Catholic. I was a Catholic. I wouldn't say I was a devout Catholic. I wasn't praying every day. I was a sinner. I was there was a period in time in secondary school. I mean, I know some Americans call it high school. We call it secondary school in the UK. There was a period of time where I was almost questioning God. I was questioning his existence. I was becoming agnostic. I was like, if there's all this evil in this world, if there's all this, if all of these things happen to me, is there a God? Like, I mean, that was around the time where I mean, I would say it was around 2016 where all of the world became extremely politicized. A lot of the world started to become a very, very weird place, I would say. And, it started to make me question a lot of things, including my own faith. So I started to almost distance myself from the Bible. But then I don't know, certain things started to happen in my life which drew me closer to the Bible. But I still wasn't really there. It was only until it was this woman saying these things and some other things, but this was one of the main things. This was one of the main things that drew me straight back to the Bible, because I had to figure this out. I had to figure out why she was saying this, especially not to be racist, but why is a white woman telling me they're black? It was so absurd. It was like, how is this possible? So I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. And lo and behold, she was onto something. She was a genealogist as well, so she had a background in genealogy, genealogy and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let me investigate your claims, and sure enough, here I am, changed.
I just want people to let that sink in. Like, a white English lady exposed the truth that the Hebrews, the original Hebrews, the genuine Hebrews of the Bible, were a black people group.
She was American.
American. An American white lady dropped that knowledge on you, and that changed your life. Isn't that ironic? Right. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, can I just add something onto that?
Yeah, go on, bro.
I just want to say, the Most High, like, through my whole testimony, I've realized that the Most High works through the strangest of ways. You can't like, you don't, I mean, it says it in the Bible, his ways are not our ways. You will never expect the way he works. The way he works is completely mystical. He will use the most humble people. He will use the people you never expect to completely change things for you. So, I mean, that the fact that he used a white woman to lead me to this truth is just testimony of the Most High and his existence. It just solidified that for me.
What do you say to people who think the Bible is a book of myths and legends? Just briefly, what would you say to someone like that who comes to this conversation and thinks this is worthless, and it's why we using the Bible to prove that the Hebrews were black people? What would you say to someone who thinks that?
Well, I would first ask them, have they read the Bible? Because usually a lot of the time you get people who critique the Bible and they haven't even, they've only heard it secondhand. They're anti-religion, right? They haven't even really investigated the matter for themselves. So they just have this opinion and have this strong opinion, but no foundation for it. So the first question I would ask is, have you actually read the Bible? If so, have you what's it called, what is your contention? Is it that you believe it's mythology? Do you believe it's allegorical? Do you believe it's literal? What is your your stance on that? Usually people say that they don't believe that they use this example like, oh yeah, I don't believe that Noah gathered all the animals of the world and put them inside an ark, and I don't believe that Jonah got swallowed by a fish and all of that stuff. And it's like, okay, fair enough. You can see the stories in a metaphorical sense if you want to. That's fine, but it still stands that the Bible consistently gives good messages and is there is no, it's not trying to lead you astray. It's not, there's no net negative to reading the Bible. It's not trying to lead anyone astray. It's not trying to cause any harm. It's not trying to be destructive. It's been weaponized. I won't lie, the Bible has been weaponized, but in terms of the content of the book, I would say it's a positive message. It's a positive message, and it helps with life. A lot of the time you get people who what's it say? Oh, I just lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? I had a really good point.
Maybe people who think about the slavery aspect, the what was it? Was it that it's been used by the Western world?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like the same argument can be used for so many sources of material that they've been weaponized. Like the anecdote I like to give to people when they say that the Bible's the white man's book, right? Because it was used to enslave us and stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. So, okay, if someone uses a hammer to unalive someone, right? If someone uses a hammer to unalive someone, do we now ban all hammers? Do we now just completely write off hammers? It's the same thing with the Bible, because the Bible has been weaponized and used as a weapon. Do we now write off the Bible? No, it's because the same way that the hammer has been turned into a weapon is the same way that the Bible was turned into a weapon. It does not mean that the Bible in itself inherently is a weapon. It has been weaponized. It does not mean that it is a weapon. It's with most things in this world. You can use things for good or you can use things for bad. So it doesn't mean that the content itself is evil. It doesn't mean that the content itself causes oppression. It's that it has been used for oppression.
Would it matter to your faith, right, if you were wrong and the Hebrews were some ambiguous Middle Eastern mix, as pretty much is the case when you go to Israel today, or even if they were white, like modern Western Semites, who I think a lot of them can trace their heritage back to Eastern Europe? Would it matter to you if it actually turned out that, no, you're wrong, the Hebrews weren't black, they were just as they are today for the large part, that for the largest part?
If I was empirically proven wrong right now, as in this second, on undisputable evidence thrown in front of my face that I'm completely wrong, nothing would change. I would still worship my Messiah the same. I would still worship my God the same, because that's what I was doing for 22 years before I even knew this truth. I worshipped the white Jesus. I loved him the same. It had nothing to do with his skin color. It was the content of his sacrifice for me. That was what I cared about. The only reason why I am focusing on the true identity of the Israelites right now is because the truth matters. I believe that truth matters, and if the world has been sold a lie, then the world needs to know the truth, and that's all that changes. But if I'm in the wrong and I'm the one who's selling the lie, then it doesn't change anything, because I still love my Messiah the same. I still read the Bible. I still believe in him. I still know who the Israelites are. I still, nothing changes at all. It doesn't matter. Identity doesn't change anything for me. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
that answers my question perfectly. It's actually interesting. I'm glad I asked that, and I'm glad you answered the way you did, because this was one of the first things when we started to talk on via Discord. So shout out, guys, to Discord. If you're not a member of my Discord, you need to join. I think I put the link in my bio on the channel and the Throwback bio. So and if you're not a Discord person, make sure you sign up on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, and you can follow Yah is very real on Instagram as well. Yah, YAH, is very real on Instagram. So and obviously make sure you go and subscribe to his channel as well. But one of the first things that Yah is very real said to me when he hit me up on Discord was just what he just said just now. I asked him, look, I'm a believer, you're a believer, but this thing doesn't maybe that's why I didn't take it seriously. It doesn't really bother me. I don't care. I don't care what color the savior was when he came to the earth. Did he treat everyone the same? Did he come to the earth to save everyone, black, white, whatever? If the answer is yes, then it doesn't matter. Why it matters though is because of just for truth's sake, and why it's when you start to look at history, you see that everything's been weaponized against a certain group of people. You can't help ask the question when it comes to this side of things as well, because if Egypt has been weaponized against us, if Egypt has been manipulated and been turned around against us, Well, why not Israel? Why not the country that was right next to? Again, it's not severed from the African continent. It's actually part of one contiguous landmass. So why not? Why not ask that same question about Israel? Anyway, that's it's ultimately it's by the by. The only reason it's important to us is for the same reason that we're historians, trying to find out the truth about the past. So as far as Denz's integrity is concerned, as he's just said, it doesn't matter to him at all. He will still worship the Most High, who he calls Yah. And same goes for myself. Right, Denz, what does the word Adam really mean? You had this in your video, 100 proofs. Remind me what the title of your video was.
Of course. So my series is called 100 Proofs the Israelites Were Black, and obviously it's going to be 100 proofs back to back. Well, it's a series right now, but once I get to part 10 and finish it off, I'm going to create a full video of all the videos put together, back to back to back. So the video is called 100 Proofs the Israelites Were Black.
Okay, the video is 100 Proofs the Israelites Were Black on the Yah is Real YouTube channel, right? In the first part one, you start off by going into the word, like at the very beginning. You go to the very beginning and you talk about Adam. What does that word Adam really mean?
Of course. Okay, so we obviously the Bible, most Bibles that we have today are translations. We have the original Hebrew text. We have most like the KJV, the NIV, stuff like that is translated from the Masoretic text, right? And that's taken from an older source. But the Hebrew word being used for Adam in this instance is Adamah, which means it means soil for its general redness. It means country, earth, ground, and the word for ground here is the Hebrew word Adama, and that's the same or essentially the same word given to Adam. So people usually use the argument that because the word Adam also has a connotation with redness, that the Israelites must have been white, right? Because only white people can be blushed. Yeah, it's insane to me. But I've heard this argument so many times being in this space that the first humans had to be white because Adam's name was Adam, and it means ruddiness, redness. So he has to be a white man who was blushing, a healthy, ruddy skin. And it really annoys me because historically the word ruddy has always meant a reddish brown complexion. He was taken from the ground, he was taken from the soil. As a matter of fact, earlier in the video I show the different types of soil, and obviously for the Hebrew word Adam, one of the meanings is clay, clay. So it's also a fun fact. Clay has most of the minerals that are required for humans to thrive, to exist. So that's just a fun fact I want to throw out there. But it uses the word clay, and people like to I have something here, they like to say that it means white blushing skin, and historically, for animals, for humans, it has always meant reddish brown. As a matter of fact, in the 1500s Bible, you have the KJV, which is 1611. It was made in 1611, but you have an earlier Bible from the 1500s, the Matthew's Bible, which actually substitutes the word ruddy itself with the word brown. So historically, we have evidence that the word ruddy has always meant a reddish brown pigmentation. And even we can take this even from a scientific point of view. When has white skin ever produced brown skin or black skin? When has this ever happened in observable nature?
Biology.
Biology. Thank you. It's not possible because many of the white genes are recessive, and to create someone who has more melanin than you have to have the genetic marker in order to create that melanin, and they don't have that. So to put it in simple terms, you would need to have someone who has that marker to create a significant amount of melanin to be able to create a diverse from I'll use, what's it called? I have an annotation here. Yeah, here you go. You would have to have someone who has melanin to create a variation of pigmentation here. So yeah, I mean, it from both a biological and etymological sense, from both biological sense and an etymological sense, Adam, the first humans had to have been a black people. So I don't know if that's an adequate explanation, or you want me to delve further.
In the Arabic, it's Adamu or Adam is often used interchangeably to refer to black or very dark brown color, nearing black.
Yep.
Did you know that yourself?
I mean, you only just told me that now, but the fact that you just said that, I've never heard that before.
Wow.
But the fact that you just told me that right now, everything makes sense. It just makes sense.
Okay. Keep your thing on. I'll share it back on the screen as and when is needed. But yes, I'm not surprised that you just heard that for the first time now, because I only just came across this, well, maybe in the last year or year and a half. Now, I had it at the back of my head because I have Arabic and Muslim friends. I've always had Arabic and Muslim friends growing up, but it wasn't like a whoa, stop, what does that mean kind of thing. Right. There was no eureka moment to it until I started doing this, and I kept coming across this word whenever I would look at the Arabic text and something was translated as black or brown. I would go to see, because the trolls often they like to play word games. You know, we have this with Kemet when it talks about the land of the blacks, or they say that doesn't refer to the people, it refers to just the soil. Okay. They also talk about you have this anytime in antiquity, the color black comes up in reference to people who common sense would tell you are black people. There's always a controversy created around what black all of a sudden means. You know, Sheikh Anta Diop had this, where he turned up at this conference defending the blackness of ancient Egypt, and he literally had to defend what the word black meant, because these men were out there playing word games, stupid. You know, he turned up to debate, you know, to debate intellectually, and to debate anthropology and history and science, and they got man playing Scrabble. You know, this is stupid. So, and he threatened to just pack his bags and go home if they wouldn't, I think from what my vague memory, if they wouldn't just stop playing the silly games. And they said, all right, fine, you can have that. I think this was at the Cairo Symposium. So the same goes for this Arabic word that kept coming up when I was doing my videos on the original Egyptians and whatnot. The same kept coming up. So I had to look at this. Well, it didn't keep coming up. It didn't keep coming up. Excuse me. It didn't keep coming up because I knew that of the controversy they tried to create around the word black. I thought, better check what the original word being translated here as black is, because, you know, somebody might come up in the video in the comments and say something stupid, just like they do elsewhere. So I looked into it, and the word was Adamu, or some derivation of, you know, the same word Adam. I thought, Adam, what's that? And it comes up quite a lot. So I looked into it, and it checks out. It's an interchangeable word. There's a grammatic term for it. There's an actual term for it, and I've forgotten it now. It's not. Is it a metonym? Something like that. I think it might be a metonym, where the word takes on a word starts off meaning something else, but because it's being used to reference to something, it takes on that meaning. So maybe in about 20 years' time, the word Google might just mean to search for something, just generally, because Google, we say, oh, Google it. So
yeah.
same thing with Adamu. It had come over time to mean black, because apparently that word was in reference to a man that was pulled out from the soil, from the earth, was made. But in the scripture it says, from the soil he made man. And I
Yeah.
think the same thing goes in the Quranic texts. So that word then, because of that, came to mean black or very, very dark brown. So
Right.
you will see that in the Arabic texts, they have other words for brown nearing black, but they also use the word Adamu. Now, that's undebatable. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting
100%.
that you're saying this within the context of scripture, of Bible scripture.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
and brother, I just want to add on. You know how we're both Yoruba brothers, right?
yep,
Look, I want to show you something real quick. I mean, I
yep.
discovered this very recently, and it's amazing stuff because it's even in it's even in the Yoruba language as well for Adam. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, of course you can. I'll add it
Yeah.
to yeah.
So I won't go through the entire video, but just
Oh,
look
that's
at this
cool.
stuff. Like, created clay means that Amor. Another thing is
Wow.
this is what's it called? Ada means we created, Amor means clay, and the whole sentence would be Adamo,
No
we created from
way.
clay. Yep,
Yes, I know that. Amo is clay. Yes.
yeah,
Ada
yeah.
is we create something. We create Wow. No way.
It's in our language as well. Yeah, yeah. There's way
I
more. There's
can't-
so much more. It's amazing.
No, that's bizarre. No, 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 no. Did you just look this
Yeah.
up right now?
Nah. I've known about this for a while. Like this is why I'm so. This is why I'm so like. I know that they were black. I know they were black. Like it's all over the languages.
So let's just recap right now. So what you've just said, just say it quickly for us in 30 seconds. Just recap it for me in 30 seconds. What's on the screen right now?
Okay, so to recap what's on the screen. So in the Yoruba language, we have Amo, which means clay. We have Ada, which means we created, and the whole sentence would be Adamo, which means we created from clay. And obviously, we know in the Bible, Adam was created from the soil of the earth. The Hebrew term in the Bible for ground is Adama, which also means clay, ground, soil in its general redness. So the word Adama, so Adam, it means ruddiness. So soil, the clay soil is usually of a reddish brownish tone, and that's what it's historically been known to be. So we have there is evidence within, as you said, Arabic language, the Hebrew languages, a lot of the Semitic languages, even the Niger Congo languages. As we can see, Yoruba language here, Adamo. So yeah.
Adamo. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. My goodness. I'm getting stunned with every word, and I'm thinking that by the end of this live, I'll be like down here. I'll be off the screen. I just see myself on the camera. I didn't realize
Oh
I was
yeah.
thinking into my chair. Oh my days.
It's
This is
deep, bro.
ridiculous.
It's deep. It's really deep. Like it's really deep.
And we've not even started. This is question one. Right. Let's go on to the next topic. Right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
In part one of your video, 100 proofs that the Hebrews were black. About the 3-minute mark, you said you started to talk about the flood. Now, in the Bible, Genesis 6 onwards is countdown to doomsday by flood, and we meet the man who restarts the human race, Noah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know what skin color he was?
So we have apocryphal books, what they call it, apocryphal books, right? Books that are not part of the apocrypha. These are books that are not considered the main canon. We weren't accepted by the Protestants, the Catholics, the main when the Bible was compiled as the 66 books as it is today, those books were put to the side, but they are still canon. They are still scripture. What's it called? As a matter of fact, the Ethiopians, if you look at the Ethiopian Bible, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, many other books are part of their their Bible, their Ethiopian Bible. They have 88 books compared to our 66, the Western world 66. So in the Book of Enoch, there's a passage where Lamech, who is Noah's dad, when his wife gives birth to Noah, he looks at Noah and he's frightened because he believes that this child is the offspring of the fallen angels, that because obviously, you know, you have the story of the fallen angels in Enoch mating with humans and creating the Nephilim, right? It speaks about that in the Bible, you know, the giants rather. And so he describes this child as having skin as white as snow, and what's it called? His hair being, his eyes being bright as the sun. So we know in the Bible, right, that Noah had 3 sons. Noah had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham had four children. Canaan, Phut, Mizraim, and Cush. And it's accepted that Cush of the Bible is the progenitor of the Cushites. And obviously, you know about the Cushite civilization that is in Sudan, Lower Egypt, or sorry, not Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt rather, but you know, in Sudan, beneath Egypt, as we see it in the modern map today. That's where the Cushite Empire was. And obviously, we know that the Cushites were undeniably black people. I mean, they were in Sudan, right? So we know that if it is accepted that the Cushites are descendants of Cush, and the Cushites are a black people, and that would make Cush black, right? I mean, it makes sense for him to be a black man if he has black children, or black descendants rather. So if Cush is black, then that would mean that his father Ham would have had to be black. His father Ham would have had to be black. That means Mizraim, who is biblically the progenitor of the ancient Egyptian civilization. That would mean that Canaan was also black. That would mean that Phut is black. So that would mean that Ham is black. And even now, the racist Eurocentrists or the Bible thumpers, the racist Bible thumpers, say that all black people are the children of Ham, right? We're the children of Ham. That's a very common. Even the Mormons say that, or used to say that. So they accept that black people are that Ham was at least black. But if Ham was black, then that means his brothers would have had to be black as well, coming from the same mother and father. And we know that Ham is Noah's son, which means that Noah had to have been a black man. But wait, if Enoch is telling us that he was white as snow and that he had eyes as bright as the sun, there's something that, you know, doesn't add up there. Why is he bright? Why is he light? Why is his skin as white as snow, but yet he has black children? And it only makes sense that he was an albino black man. He was an albino black man. Noah was an albino black man. As a matter of fact, it's even accepted by other biblical scholars that Noah was an albino black man. There was a paper I was reading very recently. It was on Cambridge University. It was published on Cambridge University, and someone published the whole paper proving how Noah was black.
You know, I never knew about that from the Book of Enoch. Obviously, the Book of Enoch isn't obvious to people who are in the know. The Book of Enoch isn't part of accepted scriptural canon, and that's because there are parts of it that are they're not. When they were compiling the books of the Bible, which books went in and which books went out. People think they just made an arbitrary decision, but actually they didn't. The books that went in were already accepted by the majority of Christians at the time as being legit. We know the source of it. Now, that doesn't mean that all the books that weren't in it that didn't get accepted weren't useful. It's just that the Christians at the time couldn't verify that this was the word of God. This was spoken word for word to the prophets, the saints, the apostles, and all, you know, the big names of the Bible, the writers of the Bible. They couldn't guarantee that this was divinely inspired by God. So Enoch is one of those books that falls short of that. It's a book that people reference. It's got some, like, people believe it's got good pointers in it. and lots of people will quote the Book of Enoch for lots of actually good historical information that matches up in many respects, but it's just not part of the canon. But it's still, I will say, still a very useful book. But what I didn't know is what you just told me tonight, that actually Noah is described. I agree with you, actually, based on, if your description, if your account is to be believed, that does sound like the scriptures describing an albino man. And when I saw that claim in your video, I didn't know what to make of it. So when you make a renewed version, a proper, like an altogether version, make sure you make that point clear, because it just came out of nowhere. It just came out of nowhere to me. I thought, what?
Right.
Noah's an albino? When did we when did we establish that? Like, it just hit me out of left field. Now, my next question is the Elamites. In your video, in your video at about the 6-minute mark, part 1 of 100 proofs that the Israelites were black, on the Yah is Very Real YouTube channel, about the 6-minute mark, you show some images of the Elamites in your video. Who were the Elamites?
Okay, so the Elamites are descendants of Shem. Shem begat Elam, Arphaxad, Aram. There are 2 others. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, but you know that he begot Elam. Elam is one of the sons of Shem, you know, who was the son of Noah. And so we have the Elamites, who are descendants of Elam. They claim descent from the Elam, from Elam. And we have depictions of them. We have accepted depictions of the Elamites today. I'm showing them on my screen. These are the Elamites, and we can clearly see their not only their phenotype, but their color of skin, their hairstyle. You know, that these are clearly a black people.
They're even colored in. They're, in some of these depictions, they're colored in as, like, they're not cartoonish black, but they are colored in as black to brown. Not even the red that you see on the Egyptian walls. This is just straight brown.
Straight dark brown. And we can look at the what's it called? I don't know if these are some speculate that these could be dreads, you know.
Those look like dreads to me, and I noticed the fullness of their lips as well,
and their beard, the full beard. I mean, look at your beard, bro. You know, you can see that. You know, Africans, well, at least black people, we have very full beards. We have obviously, because of our hair texture, our woolly hair texture, we can grow full beards like that. So you know, look at the depictions. You have the dread hairs, you have the full beards here, you have the woolly hair. You know, look at the texture the artists have used.
There's close kink represented in those round balls in the beards.
Yeah. You can see the round beards. I mean, here's another depiction of the Elamites. You know, you can clearly see. Look at the nose, the wire, the nose, the lip features. I mean, if people can't see that these clearly look like black people, then I don't know what else to show them. But you know, these are the Elamites. These are authentic depictions of the Elamites, of who they were. So yeah, those are the Elamites.
Wow, I'd seen some of these images before, but some of the many of them that you show in your video I hadn't actually seen before. Like the one that's on the screen. Excuse me, the one that's on the screen right now. It's got no color to it, but there's no denying, if your head's screwed straight on, there's no denying with the way that nose is broad and sort of sunken in, and the fullness of his cheeks and his lips there, even as a 2D image. That is, Patrina Oldfield says they have the twist and the locks just like the Egyptians. Yes, you can. Thank you, Patrina. You can see that in the hairstyle. But these are people, Elamites. They're not supposed to be on the African continent. They're actually Elam. If you find it, the accepted, and we'll go in with that because that's very likely true.
Yeah.
Until we can verify otherwise. But the accepted location for the Elamites is on the sort of the Middle Eastern plates there. And so, but these are depicted as a black people group. So I've got in your video, you also said, you said about the Elamites, you quoted a person called, let me find him. You said,
I can skip forward. Yes, Sir Henry Johnson. Here you go.
Sir Henry Johnston. What did he have to say about the Elamites?
In his book, The Negro in the New World, he talks about the Elamites of Mesopotamia, the land of the two rivers. So I'll read a quote. The Elamites of Mesopotamia appeared to have been a Negroid people with kinky hair and to have transmitted this racial type to the Jews and Syrians.
Let me read that again because that's amazing. This is a guy writing, I believe, as per your video, in 1910. And he's a supposed expert on the ancient world. He's been given a knighthood, so he's an expert on something. Sir Henry Hamilton Johnston said, the Elamites of Mesopotamia appear to have been a Negroid people with kinky hair and to have transmitted this racial type to the Jews and Syrians.
Yep.
Wow. I'd never come across that quote before I watched your video. Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So we're not some crazy sat here, you know, people with knighthoods, you know, you might want to throw them in the same basket with us if you want to play that game.
100%. And he's not the only one. He's not the only one who, you know, I have other quotes in the video. He's not the only person who came up with this same conclusion that they were definitely at least, you know, a Negro people.
Can you tell us of the others, please?
Yeah, of course. So you have George Rawlinson here on the screen. In his book, The Five Great Monarchies of the Ancient Eastern World, he talks about how the Elamites' heads were cut. I'm reading a quote. The Elamite head was covered with short, crisp curls. The eye was large. The nose and mouth nearly in the same line. The lips thick, and that's clear. That's very, very, very similar to the depictions that we just saw earlier of the thick lips. You know, the broad noses. You know, the curly hair. The twisted hair. I mean, if we have Harry Johnson, we have George Rawlinson. We also have another one. Oh yeah, here we go. More depictions. We have others. There was another one. I think I have it's on my page. I don't think I put it in the video. There's another one, but yeah.
Well, there was okay, so maybe I can help you out. Who was C.H. Xenobos, and what did he mean when he said? I believe in your video you quote him.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah,
you quote him as saying the Mesopotamian skin. He said something about Mesopotamian skin. Have you got it there with you?
Yeah, it's right here.
Thank you. Can you read it to us?
Yeah, of course, I'll read it out for you. So this is Professor Charles Xenobos in his work, The History of Ancient Civilization in 1906. He says, it is within the limits of Asia and Africa that the first civilized people had their development. The Egyptians in the Nile Valley, let me just skip on so I can get to the other part. The Chaldeans in the plain of the Euphrates. They were people of sedentary and peaceful pursuits. Their skin was dark, their hair short, their hair short and thick, the lips strong, similar to what what's it called? George Rawlinson said. Nobody knows their origin with exactness, and scholars are not agreed on the name to give them. Some term them Cushites and others Hamites. And obviously we know that people believe that all black people come from Ham. So obviously he's also co-signing that the what's it called, that they were a black people.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
this is why it's good to link up. I've never heard of these as there's so excuse me. There's so much that's hidden from us. Just I don't mean hidden from us just as black people. I mean just as everybody. There's so much as hidden from us that is convenient to just not tell people about, and like this being one of them, that you had experts, early experts on this region of the world saying that the earliest people who lived in these places in recorded history looked like, well, they look like black folk. This is incredible. So when we have sorry, go on.
So we were talking about the Elamites. This is in the same region, you know, Mesopotamia, the Elamites of Mesopotamia, but these are the Sumerians. I just wanted to add on that we have Sir Arthur Keith, who said that the Sumerians in the region had dolichocephalic skulls, and we know that that's a skull shape or a skull type that is predominantly found in African populations, Black African populations.
Thank you, my bro. You've skipped ahead on me, but that's good. That's good, because we're gonna get to that in a minute. I want to ask you something before we get to that dolichocephalic question.
Of course.
So the Bible in Genesis, so thank you for correcting me there. It says that Abraham was from Ur of the Chaldees.
Yeah.
Now, where's this the accepted location of this? Where's the agreed upon location of this?
The accepted location in modern scholarship of the Chaldees is, I believe, southern Mesopotamia. So where between the land of the Tigris and the Euphrates in the Middle East right now.
So we're talking modern, where we say modern Iraq, modern Iran.
Yeah, we would say modern. What's it called? I will say. Yeah, modern Iraq, southern Iraq. Yeah.
Right. Southern Iraq, modern day Iraq there. Okay. And Abraham being the father of the Jewish nation, I know Moses gets a lot of Moses gets massive shine amongst the Hebrew nation. But Abraham is actually the father of the Jewish story. The Bible doesn't describe his physical features, but does anything else give us a clue about what he might have looked like? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the population he was around. We can talk about the Chaldeans. You know, he was in the Ur of the Chaldees. So, you know, let's just walk through it. I mean, let's just talk about. Okay, so let me skip back to this region. So we have the scholars that Professor Charles Zanobos was just talking about the Chaldeans and how their skin was dark. Sorry, I'll skip to that part. There we go. Yeah, their skin was dark. Let me go back. Yeah, there you go. Their skin was dark, the hair short and thick, the lips strong. So that's one source. We also have an earlier source. I believe it's in what's it called? It's George Rawlinson. Sorry, not George Rawlinson. There we go. We have Godfrey Higgins, and this is Godfrey Higgins was he was a landowner. When was he from? I don't know if I put it on the. Oh yeah, there we go. He was an 18th century historian. He was an 18th century historian, English magistrate and landowner, and he did biblical research also. And his conclusion was that the Chaldees were originally black. They were originally Negroes. So that was his conclusion that he came up with. We have Professor Charles Sanobos, who came up with the conclusion that their skin was dark. They had broad lips, broad noses. So and obviously we know that the region that Nimrod, a black king, we know that the Kushites were black, was ruling over. He was a black king. So we have a black king who is ruling a black population, and we know that Abraham did not stick out. We're not given any evidence in the Bible that Abraham stuck out in the land that he was living in. So we knew that he was amongst the Chaldean population, and obviously we know that the Chaldean population had a black phenotype. So obviously it makes sense that he himself, Abraham, was a black man also.
That's I just want you to keep spitting. That's
oh yeah.
When we edit this back, I'm expecting this spirit to get some fire, some shrapnel to come its way. Right, okay. You mentioned Arthur Keith there. You said you quoted him in your video. So yes. Explain to us. He said, you've quoted him already, but let me just give the quote again. In the book by Paul, Woolley, Gadd, and Keith in 1927. The book is quoted as saying, Sir Arthur Keith says that the people who spoke Sumerian were dolichocephalic with large brain capacity, like a section of the pre-dynastic Egyptians. What does this term dolichocephalic mean, bro, and why is it important to this discussion?
Okay, so the term dolichocephalic. It is a skull shape. It's a obviously we're talking about, I mean, a lot of racists really don't like talking about skulls because, you know, it's one of those things that can't really be changed. You know, it's very solid, but it's a skull shape. It's a relatively long skull shape, which is where the width of the head is less than 80% of the length of the head, right? And this phenotype is found predominantly within African civilizations, and usually when it's found in European civilizations, it's usually a defect. It's like a birth defect. So it's predominantly found in black populations to have a long skull, right? I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know if your viewers are British, right? But we've all heard the term beanhead, right? You call your black friend a beanhead or something because he has a long head or like
So
it's a
that's what
skull
they were
shape.
saying when I was in school. That's what they meant. Oh, I didn't know that. I swear, I promise you now, I did not know that's what they were referring to. I got called that all the time. My
Yep,
goodness.
it's the head shape, you know. Yeah, yes, the skull shape. That's what it is. The dolichocephalic is having a long skull, and yeah, you know, obviously you get the term beanhead sometimes, but yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
My days. Oh my goodness. I feel like going back and slapping some people. Oh my god. Unbelievable. Okay, so this is obviously like something that is found in black populations, this head shape. And I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We have a name for it in common parlance in African communities, but in Nigeria, amongst the Yoruba people, we have a name for it. We call it Ogo, and you know, it's just something you get. Some people have it more than others, but it's a thing. Just a big long back head, almost looking like Alien, from
Yeah.
Alien, you know, the Alien movies. Okay, so. And this dolichocephalic thing is something that, again, I think so Arthur Keith was saying in 1927 that kept coming up when they looked at the skulls of Sumerian people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the region of
Okay.
Mesopotamia. Yep.
Okay. So you have, let me ask you this. I know a little something about George Rawlinson. He did not view black people in a favorable light. I know there are there are quotes from him that I like to use, but they are begrudging quotes, things he said begrudgingly. We have quotes of him outright denying the Africanicity of the ancient Egyptians because he said like he felt the Africans to be an inferior species of mankind. He actually
Yeah.
said that. He basically said in one of his works, I can't remember it now. He said Egypt looks like an African civilization, and on the body of evidence, he effectively said, yes, it looks like that. I know it looks like that, but it can't possibly be that because we all know the Africans are, and they don't have it in
Yeah.
them. He
Right.
said that. So at least he was honest. At least he was honest. And I don't mind that. I would take someone like that over kind of what we have in academia today that likes to pat us on the head and say, oh, we're not racist. We're just trying to go for the facts. And, you know, there was a mix. You know,
Yeah.
I'd rather the racist George
Up
Rawlinson
front.
said up front, you know, because then we
Yeah.
can actually start to piece the pieces together properly. Okay.
100%.
Notwithstanding his racism, he goes on and he said this quote, I got this from your video. He says, in Susiana, where the Kushite blood, I believe Susiana, where's Susiana?
Susiana was the land of the Elamites.
Right, the land of the Elamites. He says, in Susiana, where the Kushite blood was maintained in tolerable purity, there was, if we may trust the Assyrian remains, a very decided prevalence of a Negro countenance. The head was covered in short, crisp curls, the eye large, the nose and mouth nearly in the same line, the lips thick. So this is George Rawlinson writing in something that you cited on your video. and the book is The Five Great Monarchies of the Ancient Eastern World, 1862. All of it and more is in the video by Yah is Very Real. I encourage you all to go and watch that video. You quoted that in your video. Have you seen these remains?
I have not personally seen these remains. No, I haven't seen them myself. But
that would be great if you could track them down and put them in your finalized video.
Oh, I'd love to. 100%.
Where do you think they are?
Hidden. I think they're hidden somewhere, or they've just completely, like, I mean, knowing these people, they'll probably smash them up. Like, you know, like it's a thing where it's like, if we see these things, questions will have to be asked. There will be a lot of questions that will have to be asked. If we start looking at these, if we start looking at the ancient Sumerians and we start looking at the ancient Mesopotamians, right? And we constantly see dolichocephalic skulls. We constantly see the same skull shape, the same predominant the same predominant skull shape that we see in Black African populations. Questions will have to be asked that they don't want asked. So, I mean, to have those skull shapes in display, to have them out in the open, I think it would be cool. It would cause a problem. So I think they're hidden somewhere.
It's quite disgusting that we even have to have this debate, because common sense would tell you actually that, I'm just going to put this out there, we black people, we breed. we breed where you know, like, our natural state is to have a good time and just, like it says in the Bible, seeing as we're on the topic, to multiply and fill the earth. So that's us, and if we breed, we overflow. Overflow. So this artificial boxing of us into Africa, like, and not just Africa, below the Sahara, it's quite insulting to tell us that people who are known, not just, forget everything else, but known for wherever we go for breeding, like you know what, breeding like rabbits. You know, just decided nature just kept them under the Sahara. You won't find us anywhere else making cities and building cities and spreading civilizations. Well, even in places, land masses that are like not disjointed from where we're supposed to be from, like literally like next door to us. Yemen is like, you can swim the distance between Africa, mainland Africa, and Yemen. People swim the channel. That's a further distance, you know. England and France, that's a further distance, and it's colder waters. You know. So but Africans just stayed literally within that the space where the racists, like, sorry, let me give them the benefit of the doubt. Africans just decided to stay within the confines that the quote unquote experts said we always were just inhabited. We just decided, oh yeah, that's true. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
Just common sense doesn't make any sense. You know. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. Okay, I wanted to ask you about this. Something intriguing came up in your video, just briefly.
Of course.
This phrase, the black-headed people. What does that mean? That was in your video.
Oh yeah, gladly. So it was obviously it was found on one of the Sumerian tablets inside what is accepted to be Sumeria today, and the Sumerians themselves would refer to themselves as the black-headed people, which is Sagiga. It's going to appear on the screen. Yep, see, there you go. Which literally means the black-headed people. So the Sumerians themselves called themselves a black-headed people. And we know that this is in the same area as Mesopotamia. And as we know, as the other quotes, you know, the Elamites, the Chaldeans, the same people in the same area of Mesopotamia, they were all black. And we just have another confirmation of the Sumerians themselves calling themselves the black-headed people. So
you have the people of Sumeria called, again, just like in Egypt, referring to themselves, seems like something that a proud moniker, the black-headed people. So the people, what do the experts, when they come across that term, that endonym that the Sumerians had for themselves, what do they make of that? How do they explain that away? You have a people calling themselves the black-headed people. How do they get over that?
I mean, I've seen like another interpretation that is trying to come up with. It means that like they were called the sick-headed people, but I don't. It makes no sense. Well, you know, there's what's it called? I think there was a scholar. I can't remember which the scholar is, but they believe that the sagiga means sick head. So like to have a headache or something. But I don't really buy that explanation at all. They were called the black-headed people. Black-headed.
Explain the biblical word kedar. That came up in your video as well. Part 1 of 100 proofs that the ancient Israelites or the Israelites were black. In your video, you mentioned the word kedar. Now, I didn't know what this word meant. I've seen it in the Bible, having read it myself, but I didn't know what it meant till you explain it in your video. So,
cool.
What does it mean and where does it turn up?
So the word so basically Kedar, well we have Abraham, right? Abraham from Ur of the Chaldees, and he has two sons. He has more sons, but the main two sons that are already spoken about in the Bible is Ishmael and Isaac, right? And his son Ishmael then goes on to have a son of his own and names that son Kedar. So the Hebrew meaning for the word Kedar is literally dark. It means black. It means black or dark. It depends on the word itself means dark. You can get different concordances that will swap between the words dark or black. So that's why I use many examples in this video here. So this is the strongest concordance, and this uses the NSA exhaustive, which means swarthy. So you have dark, swarthy. We know that swarthy means dark. And this is another one. I can't remember where this is, but it's from a very old source. I think this is from the 1900s. And Kedar means black skin, black-skinned. So Ishmael, who descends from Abraham, calls his son dark. He names his son black, dark, black. Why would he do that if the son was not black in nature? Like why would he call his son black if he was not black?
Well, let me answer you there and say, well, let me give you some pushback there. Why would somebody who is black themselves call their son black? I mean, does that not prove that the somatic norm, the skin color norm, the normative skin color, doesn't that normative, the empirical skin color, doesn't that prove that wasn't black? And so obviously he's impressed by the blackness of his son, so he's calling him black. So isn't that what's going on there?
That's a great point. I addressed this in part 2 because there's another passage in the Bible where there's a biblical character that's called Simeon, and he's referred to as Niger, right? And,
okay, let's go there now. Let's go to this character in the Bible.
Okay, cool.
Simon Niger,
100%. I'll take you to that in my video. Yeah. So I'll give you the biblical verse. Here it is. What's it called? Sorry. Bear with me. For some reason it's playing up. Okay, here you go. So yeah, it's Acts 13:1. I'll read it out. Now there was in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger. So the word there is Niger. He was called Niger. That's what he was called. So obviously people ask, what does that mean in a biblical context? The word, obviously we're in the New Testament now, so we're using a Greek source. So the Greek word would be Niger, which means of Latin origin, which is black. It means black. It means black. The word is black. And what's it called? The next question that people usually ask is, okay, well, if the Israelites and the people are black, then why would one of them maybe be called black, like you said, right? If the norm was for everyone to be black, why would you name someone black? But people seem to forget that humans haven't really changed much from modern days to ancient days. If there is someone in your group, right, who, I mean, say we're all black, right? We're all of a let's say a dark brown skin tone, but you have one person in your group who is extremely dark. Like you say, you have a bunch of Nigerians, right, who have let's say your complexion of skin, but you have one man who's a South Sudanese guy, and his skin is extremely black compared to everyone. You usually give that guy a nickname. You give that guy a nickname. You point him out. You know, you call him. I mean, we did it in secondary school all the time. I mean, I'm ashamed to admit it, but you know, people would call each other like, you know, darky or like blacky or like you know, blick. You're blick. You're dark. Like, you know, you're like you would give people who had inherently darker skin than the norm.
Exceptionally darker skin.
Yeah, exceptionally darker skin to the rest of the population. You would give them a nickname. You'd give them a name that points them out. And in this case with Kedar, as we were speaking about earlier, I believe that when Ishmael gave birth to, well, obviously he didn't give birth, but when Ishmael had his son, he saw a very black child. He saw a child that had a very dark complexion of skin compared to the norm of that time, and named that child Kedar. That means black.
Do you know what? It makes perfect sense, but it doesn't just make perfect sense for the way you're explaining it. I can relate to that because I did that growing up. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all did it, you know. See, the term that you use, blick, is what we use there in the UK. I don't know if they use that out there in the States where we have a lot of our viewers. But yeah, I mean, you weren't just black, you were blick. So that's, like you said, humans don't seem to have changed that much. And also something else that you had in your video was, I think, Michael Blackson, the comedian. He was making a point about this. Like, he was, I think the nickname they had for him in the video was I think he said that go on, play it for us.
Is it sharing audio? Can you hear it?
Yeah, sharing audio. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Simeon is no exception.
I didn't know how dark I was till I came to America.
What would people say to you?
I mean, this guy told me I look like under the bed. That's real dark.
Yeah.
Right. So the guy said, you know, in school people said to him, look, you just look like under the bed. That is awful. But that's Michael Blackson saying that presumably that's amongst his black friends, you know, talking about how dark he was. So okay, that seems to add up. That makes perfect. That, to me at least, that makes sense. You know, you have people who are exceptionally dark, and even in my context, like as in your context, we still do that today. And so Kedar might have been an exceptionally black person. I think it's accepted even in the Arabic community, the Islamic community, that Ishmael, it's nowhere in the Bible per se, but it's accepted by tradition that Ishmael was the son of an Egyptian slave or servant.
Yeah, it is in the Bible. It's Hagar. Hagar was the Egyptian.
Yeah. Right. So that if she was particularly dark, what experts today might call Nubian, and Abraham is already of a dark hue himself, maybe you can see where the exceptional darkness comes from, to the point where he's called Kedar, to the point where Ishmael is naming his son, the grandchild of Abraham, Kedar. Okay, cool. So this is going to be a weird question. What's the definition of a miracle? What do you understand by a miracle?
A miracle, I would say a miracle is an event or an event or a series of events that do not have any logical explanation, but can only be attributed by the works of a higher power, aka the Most High. I would say that would be a miracle.
Okay. Are there any miracles? So you're talking about something that's, let's get that straight. A miracle is something that, an extraordinary event that can only be explained by supernaturally, like by something that's done by a supernatural entity. Okay, cool. Are there any miracles in the Bible that could indicate the color of the ancient Israelites?
Absolutely. Let's use the case of Moses. So you know, Moses, obviously he was a shepherdman. He was herding sheep, and he was approached by the Most High in a burning bush, as an appearance in a burning bush, and he was afraid. He was afraid. He didn't know. He was very confused. And the Most High proved himself to be the Most High, proved himself to be the living God of heaven and earth by demonstrating a series of miracles to Moses. And one of these miracles were changing the hand of Moses to white as snow. That's verbatim in the Bible, as white as snow. So he puts his hand in his bosom, takes it out, and his hand is white as snow. And then he's told to put his hand back in, and it changes back to its original complexion. Now, the question I usually propose to people who believe that Moses was a white man, as depicted in most of these modern movies and stuff like that, is if Moses was already white and this was supposed to be a powerful miracle, as a powerful sign, that's what it says in the Bible verbatim, as a powerful sign. It's supposed to be powerful, it's supposed to be undeniable, a miracle, right? Extraordinary, unexplainable, only attributed by the Most High. If he was already white, would making his skin, or fair skinned, would making his skin whiter, just a bit whiter, be considered a miracle in a biblical, in I don't want to say, like, in a mass, like the creator of the universe is using you as a vessel to deliver your people. This is a story that is being told for the rest of mankind to the end of civilization. Do you think he's going to turn your skin a bit whiter just to prove that he's who he says he is? Or is he going to use your original dark complexion, and turn it completely white, unexplainably? That is what you would call a miracle. If someone had dark complexion and their hand suddenly turned white, completely white, then when he pulls it back out, it turns back to this original complexion. I would believe that's a miracle. And I believe that miracle proves that Moses originally had dark skin.
I mean, you could be olive skinned, and like, do you know what? It doesn't really work. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
But the thing is, even with him being olive skinned, I mean, I don't like to use that as the only proof to prove that Moses was black, but I like to use it as one of the proofs to prove that Moses was black. Because
right. It's
Moses
not a silver bullet.
Exactly. Because Moses was adopted by an ancient Egyptian family. He was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter in the Nile, right? And we know that the Cushites come from Cush. We've already established this in the beginning of the stream, that the Cushites are black. We know that Cush would be black. We know that Ham is, as a matter of fact, is black. So we know that the descendants of Ham, and Ham himself was black. Mizraim is accepted as the progenitor of the ancient Egyptians, right? So we say that so if Cush and Mizraim are brothers, then that means Mizraim has to be black. That means the progenitor of the ancient Egyptians, according to the biblical account, was black. So therefore, if he was adopted by an Egyptian family, he had to have looked like the Egyptians. He had to have looked like the Egyptians. He had to be a part of that society. He had to have looked like the ancient Egyptians. We have more account, and as I said earlier in the stream, there are many biblical accounts, several biblical accounts of the Israelites and the Egyptians, a Semitic and a Hamitic population, being mistaken for each other. The Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians. The Canaanites do it. The Joseph, his own brothers mistake him. His own brothers don't recognize him when he's in Egypt, ruling in Egypt. Moses is mistaken as an Egyptian by the Midianites when he goes to the well. What's it called? Yahusha, the Messiah, he escapes into Egypt. He hides in Egypt from the Roman soldiers. Paul is mistaken as an Egyptian by Roman soldiers in Acts. In Acts, he's mistaken as an Egyptian. So we have numerous accounts of Hamites being mistaken. These people descending from Ham, a Hamitic nation, the Egyptians, being mistaken. Sorry, the Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians. So if we know that the ancient Egyptians were black, and we know that the Israelites were constantly mistaken for Israelites, and we also know that a powerful sign was given to Moses to turn his hand white, it could only mean that he was already of a dark complexion, and the powerful sign was that his skin turned white as snow from the original dark complexion.
Wow. Before Moses, okay, there was Joseph. We know he married an Egyptian woman, and he had 2 sons by this Egyptian woman. And these 2 sons were later the fathers of the patriarchs, the heads, the progenitors, the beginners of two of the main of the 12 tribes of Israel. Why is this important to your theory?
Well, I mean, this is important to, I mean, we don't even have to use those two. Like, we can use the entirety of Israel, right? I mean, I'll use them as well. We know that the Egyptians were black, right? We've established that already. And Joseph, an Israelite, has kids with an Egyptian woman, a black Egyptian woman. And then the progenitors, well, she has Ephraim and Manasseh, who are the progenitors of the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the house of Jacob, right? So we've established that Ephraim and Manasseh had to have been black if they had came from a black mother, at least. Even if you don't accept that the Israelites were black, and you accept that Egyptians were black, you would have to accept that Ephraim and Manasseh were at least black. But we can use the Israelites as a whole. The Israelites went into Egypt as 70 people in the Bible. It's told that the Israelites go into Egypt as 70 people, but by the time of the Exodus, when they are led out, they are hundreds of thousands of them. Like, it's a massive multitude of people, and we need to think critically here. If the Israelites go into the land of Ham, the Egyptians, who are they mating with? Who are they marrying? Who are they having children with? It only makes sense like that.
This is being reductionist now. This is assuming, for argument's sake, that they're not to begin with a black skin or brown people to begin with. But at the very least, you're saying by the time they come out of Egypt after hundreds of years with the Egyptians, they're coming out a bit brown.
They have to. They're mixing with Hamites. They're mixing with the Egyptian population. You know, there would be Cushites there. I mean, it was called a mixed multitude. So we know that it wasn't only the Israelites that were leaving Egypt with them. We know it was Hamites as well. We know that it was Cushites. We know that it was Canaanites. We know that it was probably some Egyptians as well. So we know that they, as a matter of fact, in the Bible, I put this in my video, it's in part 3. We have numerous accounts of Israelite Hamite marriages throughout the Bible. We have Joseph as an example. Moses has a Cushite wife. What's it called? David had many Hamite wives. Solomon had some Hamite wives. There are numerous accounts. I have a whole table in part 3. There are numerous accounts of Israelites being with Hamitic populations. So without a shadow of a doubt, if the Hamites are black, if we've accepted that the Hamites are black, then by implication, the Israelites having children with Hamitic people would produce black children.
Okay. Who would you say is the most prominent human character in the New Testament after Jesus Christ?
In the New Testament, most prominent character.
Let's get rid of the obvious, like I said, human there. So not God, the Father, not the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, human. And Jesus, as Christians believe, is both fully man and fully God, right? It's a mystery that we believe in. But after Jesus Christ, who would you say the most prominent human character in the New Testament is?
I mean, he's not in the New Testament, right? But he's mentioned by the prophets. Moses, he's in the Old Testament. But
okay,
I would say
I mean actual New Testament character.
Oh, okay. I would say Paul. I would say he a lot of people don't like Paul for some reason. You know, the people who are usually in my community, they believe that because, you know, the Gentiles, he went to preach to the Gentiles. He was in the Roman Empire. He was born in Rome, right? So I mean, a large amount of the New Testament are Paul's writings. You know, you have Galatians, you have Acts, you have Ephesians, you have several books that are attributed to Paul, and he's doing his ministry. He didn't see the Messiah face to face in his human form. He saw him as a miracle when he appeared to him as a bright light, right? But he was not around during Messiah's earthly ministry. He was not one of the 12 disciples that were right there with him, right? So the fact that he was so convicted by the Messiah and his truth that he spread the gospel throughout the Roman Empire was imprisoned. He was a murderer. He persecuted the Israelites, but he converted completely. And also, as I was saying earlier, there's an account that proves that he was black by him being mistaken by an Egyptian.
Okay, let's stop right there. This guy, man, you're ruining my my cliffhangers.
I'm sorry, bro.
The thing.
My bad. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, cool. What you just said there is where we need to go to next, okay? Because you said in your video, you quote Acts chapter 21, verse 37 to 38. And it says something interesting about St. Paul the Apostle, doesn't it? Can you elaborate for us, please?
Yeah, I'll even read out the verse for you. So this is Acts 21, 37 to 38. So it says, as Paul was about to be taken inside, he said to the commander, "May I have a word with you? Do you know Greek?" So this is a Roman commander, a Roman soldier. And the commander asked, surprised, "Aren't you the Egyptian who led a rebellion some time ago and took 4,000 members of the assassins out into the desert?" So this is a Roman believing that Paul is an Egyptian, but yet he's an Israelite, a self-proclaimed Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. So why is a Roman soldier mistaking him as an Egyptian if they did not look similar?
And you know what? How, if that space, okay, I've thought about this. Just to recapitulate, a Greek god looks at Paul and says, "Aren't you that Egyptian?" Now, they're all dressing in Greek attire because Greek culture and is the culture du jour, the zeitgeist of the day. The Greeks begat the Romans, and the Romans are just glorified Greeks, like Greeks turbocharged and like just more intense. Okay, but so everybody's dressed the same. So this Greek god isn't really looking, okay, or Greek / Roman isn't really looking at Paul from a sense of fashion as different to himself. He can't possibly be looking at Paul as a white person, because if it's a white space or a Middle Eastern space, then there's nothing to indicate to him that Paul is different to him or is with the Egyptians in any. They're all kind of vague, racially ambiguous sort of people like we have today in the Middle East, sort of tan, like, maybe at the most tan, kind of olive, whatever, right? So it's not, I thought about that a long time ago, and I thought I was the only one that had come to this conclusion till I watched your video. And I was so happy to see it, because it was like, what else could be going on here other than you have somebody who by their very look, just phenotypically looks like an Egyptian. And what is it about the Egyptians that keeps they keep getting linked with the Israelites, don't they? In the Bible and in other ancient texts.
They do. It constantly happens. I mean, we know that the Israelites and the Egyptians were living, they were cohabiting together, at least peacefully, for quite a while, until the slavery happened and all of that stuff. But we know that they were close as a people. It was a Semitic population and a Hamitic population that got along, and they intermarried, they had children together, and as I said, there are many accounts throughout the Bible where the Israelites are being mistaken for Egyptians, so much to the point where even Messiah himself goes to hide in Egypt. And I just find that interesting, why Messiah chose Egypt out of all places to hide from Herod's soldiers. I mean, if we accept if we believe that the Levant, where that region, Palestine in the Levant, is the true Holy Land, and that's where Bethlehem was and where Yahushua was born. It was Roman occupied. It was Roman occupied, and so was Egypt at that point. Egypt would have been Roman occupied. And most of Europe, a lot of Europe was Roman occupied as well. So he could have escaped anywhere, but he would have still encountered Roman soldiers and had to hide from them. But he could have went anywhere. But yet he chose Egypt, and that make and it just why Egypt? Why Egypt out of all places? Why Egypt? Is it because it's the same place where many other biblical characters also hid? It's the land of Ham. It's the land of Ham where the Israelites were enslaved in. He goes there because he looks like the Egyptians. He looks like the population that's already there. He can blend in easily. Him, Mary, and Joseph can blend in within the population and evade the Herod soldiers who are looking for him to kill him. Because, obviously Herod knew that the Messiah was born and, was trying to persecute and kill him. So they had to hide. They had to go somewhere where they would not be found. And we know that Egypt was Roman occupied. So we know that Herod's soldiers were there regardless. But the fact is, he had to be around a population which he could just blend into. If he went to Egypt, he would not have blended in with the people there, and he would have been immediately spotted. But he went down to the land of Ham, he went down to the land of Kemet, and he hid there.
There's a specific region in Egypt where archaeologists have discovered that the Jews tended to settle whenever they post Exodus, whenever they went back to Egypt as immigrants for whatever reason. There was an actual area they tended to settle in, and they found like excavated remains of them, cultural remains, and biological remains. Do you know what that region is?
I mean, the region where they were told to settle when they were in the land of Egypt was Goshen, but I don't know if that's the land that they kept going back to.
I don't know where Goshen would be. I think it's at the Delta area. I'm not sure, but I think it's at Delta. No, the region I'm talking about, if Goshen is separate and is different, as I assume it is in the Delta, the region I'm talking about is very different. The region that the experts have found a heavy population of Jews to have settled in, and I'm just going to say it, is the Elephantine. And the Elephantine is in Upper Egypt.
Oh, Elephantine. Yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes. Okay.
The Elephantine is deep within Egypt. It is in the Aswan region, I believe.
Yes.
And that is where even till today you will get, even today with the whitewashing of Egypt and the Egyptian population and the genocide that's been committed against the darker Egyptians over the last 100 years or so, despite that, you will still find the black Egyptians, quote unquote, modern Egyptians in the Aswan region, in the Elephantine today. That region is believed, particularly the Elephantine, is believed to be where Kush, some of the blackest people in African history, if we can debate the blackness of the Egyptians all day, but nobody can deny the blackness of the Kushites, because the Kushites till today remain, especially if you go to South Sudan, the Kushites remain some of the blackest people on this planet. Okay, and Kushites had a little ghetto in the Elephantine, and this is where I think it's mentioned in Isaiah. God is displeased with the Israelites, and he talks about how they're running back to Egypt, which they were never supposed to do. And I think he mentioned Elephantine in passing. Now, I didn't know what Elephantine meant when I read that scripture, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But years later, I discovered, Elephantine was like this black hub, this particularly black hub. That's strange to me. That the Israelites would find that as a place to go to whenever they ran back to Egypt. That was the place that they created their ghettos in. That's weird, don't you think?
I find that extremely weird, and I find it extremely weird that it's very deep into Egypt. Say if we believe that the Levant, right? If we're taking the historical account that the Levant is the land that the Israelites were in, they would have to travel all the way through Egypt. They would have to go through Lower Egypt and travel up. They would have to go up the Nile. They would have to go all the way to the Elephantine, the island, the Elephantine place, right? And that they would have to go as you go down the Nile, the darker the population gets, right? I mean, as you said
Yes,
earlier,
yes.
it was basically near the Cushites. It was basically almost next to the Cushites, and we also know that Moses had a Cushite wife. So we know that the Israelites and the Cushites and the Egyptians had an affinity for each other. And we know that the Israelites and the Cushites are 100% a black population. Obviously, there's a debate whether the Egyptians were black, but we know they're black. But we know, there was an affinity between these people. And yeah, I do find that extremely weird that they would have to go deep into Egypt, down into basically Africa, like going into Africa to settle.
People, you need to go over to Yah is Very Real and check out his series on the 100 proofs that the Israelites were black people. Check that
Thank you
video
so
out,
much.
please. I really encourage you to do that. In fact, I beg you to do that. Anyway,
Thank you so much.
Lamentations. Sorry, what's that?
I just said thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much.
Listen, it's nothing at all. It's just facts. So, okay, Lamentations 5 verse 10 says something incredible, something scientifically verifiable, and it indicates that the Israelites were a black people group, in the least, and I stress in the least, a deep brownish people. Okay, so certainly like browner than what we see today in Israel, as a de facto.
100%.
Well, what does Lamentations 5 verse 10 actually say? Can you explain it to us and elaborate?
Of course. So Lamentations 5:10 says, so this is when the Judahites were going through a famine, and this is what it says: our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. That's what it says verbatim. And we can even, do you want me to elaborate on why
Yes,
this
please.
proves
Yes,
their
please.
blight? Of course. So using this verse, we can clearly use this verse to come to a conclusion that they're black, because when someone goes through being extremely malnourished, not receiving nutrients, food, any types of sustenance, the skin begins to darken. In dark populations, I'm talking about black populations. This is specific to melanated dark populations. Over time, the skin begins to darken with a shiny, varnished appearance, and then the skin peels away to reveal hyperpigmentation. Hyperpigmentation is when the skin becomes extremely dark than the original skin tone. It's darkened. It's essentially the darkening of skin, right? So the pigment changes, the pigment of skin changes, the melanin in your skin. You have darker skins. There's what's it called? What's it called? Pellagra. Pellagra is an example of this. If you search up pellagra on black people, you can see many examples of where the skin turns darker, and it's blotchy, it's very dark. There are darker regions in the skin because of the malnourishment. And this is only found in darker skin tones. This phenomenon is only found in darker skin tones, because in lighter skin tones, if someone were to go through malnourishment, for someone with olive skin, as they like to call it, right? They like to call it Mediterranean people, the Levant people, olive skinned, right? Paleness is more likely to be noticeable as malnutrition. Yeah, the skin will turn pale. You become because of the reduced hemoglobin levels or the decreased oxygen inside the body. So the skin may even turn gray or ashy in appearance, but it does not turn black. It's extremely rare. It's barely observed that the skin turns extremely dark once going through malnutrition. But in dark populations, in populations with significant melanin, darkening of the skin, also known as hyperpigmentation, occurs in certain nutritional deficiencies, such as pellagra. So the skin develops a shiny, varnished appearance, and paleness can also occur, but it's usually the skin that darkens. And so there is a completely difference between melanated populations and olive-skinned or white populations. The darker skin populations, the ones with significant melanin, the darker populations, they go through hyperpigmentation. The skin turns black when they are not receiving nutrition. The skin turns extremely black, and as Lamentations 5:10 says, the Israelites as a whole, they said it says are. So as a whole, so this is a thing that's happening to a large population. So this isn't just a one-off thing. This isn't just one person turning black. The entire population skin is black as an oven, which tells me that everyone, as a common factor, had the same shade of skin, which was dark skin, black skin. This verse, I'll read it out verbatim. This is the King James version. I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Israel, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, but because the sun have looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard have I not kept. So this is a Shulamite woman who is what's it called? One of Solomon's lovers, and she describes herself as black, as dark black.
Wow. So really what's going on there isn't somebody saying, oh, I've got a bit of a tan on because they make me work outside. It's somebody who's already basal brown / black saying, I am parched now. I've been crisped up, as you do. Whenever I go back, I've not been in years now, years and years. But in the summer, it happens. Like a few summers ago here in the United Kingdom, we had a very, very hot summer where our grass turned yellow. We didn't have any rain for a very long period. Almost. You remember that?
I remember, yeah.
Right, a few summers ago. And I spent a lot of time in the sun that summer because it was like, oh my goodness, some sun in this. Like the Moor says in Robin Hood, is there no sun in this forsaken land? It was like that. It was like, oh my goodness, there's some sun. And I just soaked it in. Now, I didn't come out with no tan. I came out like, by the end of that summer, I was like, in the light in here, you can see the, like, my skin goes kind of copperish. You can see that.
Right.
But there would have been none of that at the end of that summer. I was completely blacked up because I really soaked in the heat of that summer. And that's what this person is saying. They're not saying that, you know, I got a bit of a tan here, which is how I think I've always read this. Again, the Bible uses the words it uses like deliberately. It's not trying to be over. It can be poetic, but not. You have to read it within context. And this woman isn't saying I got a bit of a tan.
100%. And
wow.
I also like the fact that you described your own skin as what's it called, as copper, because there's an instance in what's it called, in the Old Testament where I believe it's where's the verse? It's, as a matter of fact, can I show you part of the video?
Yeah, of course. I'll add it to the stage.
Yeah, cool. It's this video. Okay.
Your room stinks.
So how are you going to prove to me that literally anyone in the Bible was black?
Okay, do you believe that in the book of Daniel was having a vision of a pre-incarnate Christ before he came into flesh?
Sure, so what?
Let's read Daniel 10:5-6. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Notice the word used to describe his body is beryl. What does beryl look like?
Like this! None of these look like black people's skin.
Look at the Hebrew word used for beryl. It's tarshish, literally meaning a precious stone, and according to the Strong's Concordance, it most likely would have been yellow jasper.
No, I don't agree. He meant that his body was yellow, like brass. It says it in the verse.
Let's take a look at the Hebrew again. The Hebrew word being translated as brass is nekosheth, which would be copper or bronze. So in this context, he had skin of burnished copper or bronze. What color would that be?
No! It was brass!
Let's look up burnished brass then. That's strike one. Now let's look at Revelation 1:15.
Look, it says brass.
You rely way too much on translations. Look at the Greek. The Greek word being used here is chalkolibano, which means fine or burnished bronze, which is consistent from Daniel's vision of Christ and the vision John is also having. What color is that again? Strike two.
That doesn't count. The definition says brass, and it also says yellow color. You're a liar.
Daniel and John both give a description of Christ as bronze or copper, a clearly brown color.
I don't agree.
Which people on earth are yellow? Wait, let me guess. You're going to tell me Christ was Asian instead of white?
Shut up!
Anyways, this next example will prove that they are indeed saying Christ has the skin of a Negro. Revelation 4:3. Here we see the stones jasper and sardine being used to describe he who sits at the throne. Let's look at what color jasper is. Now let's look at sardine. What color are they?
This is nonsense!
So let's recap. We have burnished bronze or copper, used twice by different prophets. We have yellow jasper, and we have sardius. Which people on earth have this color as their skin? Strike 3. You're out.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. There's
So that,
numerous instances.
go on, sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I was just saying there's numerous, like, yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up the copper thing. I feel like that was meant to happen because, you know, there are many instances where the prophets themselves use the word to describe Christ.
Okay, let's go on to that then. Let's start rounding up towards that climax, because that'd be a perfect way to kind of conclude this. 9 before we do that, let me just ask you this. You make the point, so briefly explain this. You make the point about the ancient Egyptians being black, and I think this is in part 2, and you stress it. Why is it important in your mind that Egypt was black in relation to the Egyptians? You know, why do you think? Let me ask it this way, because there's something I'm trying to get at here. Why do you think the dissenters of our perspective, why are they so hung up on Egypt not being black? Because it's on the African continent, quite clearly. So what is it that, is it just about Egypt they're bothered, do you think?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Right.
not. I believe that there are several implications that come with the Egyptians being black. I believe the main one is that because we had the Bible, if the ancient Egyptians were black, then the Israelites by implication are black. It's as simple as that, because the Israelites were constantly mistaken for Egyptians. The Israelites go into Egypt, procreate with the Egyptians, and leave Egypt with the Egyptians, with Egyptian children. As a matter of fact, one of the tribes, as you said earlier, Joseph had a black Egyptian wife, and 2 of the tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, come from an Egyptian woman. As a matter of fact, Ishmael is the product of Hagar, who is an Egyptian hand slave, being with Abraham. So the Israelites, or the Hebrews rather, are constantly conflated with the Egyptians. So if the Egyptians are black, by implication, the Israelites are black.
There we go. That's what I was trying to get at, and I got that a while ago. But your video really put that well across. It really ironed that, the significance, why they've set their stamp, they've set their flag into Egypt, and if that Egypt tower should crumble, so much else crumbles, because you can't then artificially box Africans into. It would be like we were saying at the beginning of this. It'd be like saying, oh, the French were obviously the white people, but not the Germans.
Exactly.
They're next door to each other. Where's the artificial line that, you know, the Most High drew and said blackness ends here? They're like right next to each other. They're like
100%.
one contiguous landmass. So if Egypt crumbles, then a lot
Everything else falls.
crumbles.
You know? And
Wow.
to add on, that's why they have to constantly make that distinction between the Nubians or the Cushites and the Egyptian population, because anything that looks too black for Egypt gets pushed to Kush, gets pushed to Nubia. So they cannot have any evidence of the Egyptians being black. They cannot accept that, because by implication, that would make the Israelite population also black.
Okay. How is Christ described in the scriptures, bro?
Whoa. I mean, we have obviously we had that one example that I just showed. We have we have, what's it called? I like this one is one of my favorites, you know, the ones that was to look upon a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow around the throne, inside unto like an emerald. So he who was to look upon was like a jasper or sardine stone. And if you look up, as we did in the video, as you look up both the rocks, jasper and sardine, these are rocks with a ruddy brown tone. it's like a brown tone. It's an undeniable brown tone. Both stones are around the same pigment. You also have other verses that I believe it's Revelation 1:14, was it 1:14 or 1:15, where Messiah is described as having feet like burnished brass, as if it burned in a fire, burnished brass, right? And he has hair like wool. Now, why would he could have said that, well, the words that could have been used there were he had hair like snow. It's been used, it was several times in the scriptures. There's several instances of whiteness being described as snow in the scripture. So if we're talking about woolliness right here, like if we're talking about color, we would use something else. Why do we use wool? Why do we use the color? Why do we use wool? And I believe it's talking about texture of hair. I believe it's talking about the texture of his hair. I'll see if I can find the exact verse, if I can put it on my screen. But obviously you have the Daniel examples I gave you right there that show that there are two prophets actually that show that that describe him as having a skin as bronze or copper. And obviously, as you said earlier, you even described your own skin as copper. It's associated with brown skin, dark brown skin. It's a dark brownish color. So we have these two prophets calling themselves, saying that he has hair like saying that he has skin like burnished brass. And we also have here we go, his hair and his head and his hairs were white like wool. And as white as snow. So it describes the color, but it also says white like wool. Why would there be two occasions where he would need to describe the whiteness of the hair? Usually when whiteness is described in the Bible, if you look in the Old Testament, every single time someone is given leprosy, that it says verbatim that they were turned white as snow, and they leave it as that. Just white as snow. It's never as white as wool and as white as snow. It's just white as snow. That's it. That's the description. But yet here, when it's talking about his head and his hairs, it also uses the description of wool. So I believe that's talking about the texture of his hair, woolly hair. And we know that we also have, his feet onto fine brass as if they burned in a furnace. We know what happens to things when it burns. So we have examples. And we know that Messiah escaped into Egypt, a black population. So we have his hair texture, we have his skin texture, and we have a people that he was around. He was black. He is black.
I love that. He was black. Look, case closed.
Yeah,
bros. What you gonna say? It was black.
What you gonna do?
I got nothing for you. He was black, man. Move on.
Yeah.
But you know what? Again, like we said at the beginning, none of this matters. I wouldn't stop believing in the Lord Jesus Christ today, neither would you, if we found out it was as white as, I don't know, Thor. It doesn't
100%.
matter.
Nothing would change.
But it does matter. It only matters insofar as someone else is trying to like play that down and suppress it. Again, if it didn't matter, then why? I mean, we all know that he wasn't blonde-haired, blue-eyed. Very, 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 very unlikely that he was blonde-haired, blue-eyed. But that's been the image that the Catholic Church and lots of other European denominations have pushed for however long, even though they were not supposed to draw images of the Messiah. The Bible talks about not creating idol
images, yeah.
Right, but they did that anyway. They created these images and they would kneel before them and bow towards them and whatnot. But
and I just want to drive that home what you just said. You made a great point there. If it didn't matter, why did they change it? If how he looked didn't matter, why are we given a false depiction all the way up to this day? Clearly it mattered.
Especially as I've seen the earliest depictions of this man show him as far away from this blonde, brunette-haired guy with blue eyes or white skin as possible. It shows him as far from that as possible. These are the earliest depictions of Jesus you will find. You will find him with close, curling, crispy hair and very, very, very dark skin. That let's just
100%.
leave it at that.
As a matter
I
of fact,
think
can I show
you
some
must have
examples?
seen these images, right?
Yeah, can I show some examples?
Yes,
If
please.
possible. Yeah. You know, these, and the thing is, we know that these are authentic. We know that these are representations of him because it's found in Roman catacombs, and we know that the Romans were the ones who killed the Messiah, and obviously some of them were the first Christians because, you know, what's it called? They were, you know, the Roman Empire. Well, obviously we have Paul. We have the account of Paul. He went through the Roman Empire and spread the gospel and etc. etc. But we know that some of the earliest believers, the earliest Christian believers, were indeed in Rome. So here we go. Here's one of the depictions of the
Wow.
time. And if that isn't a black man, I don't know what is really.
Wow, that's supposedly Jesus in the catacombs.
Yeah, yeah. This is the catacombs of Marcellus and Peter, and this is the Last Supper. This is the depiction of the Last Supper, and that's him.
Wow,
Yep.
this is amazing. Okay. So, what possessed people to go from this to the image that we like have in storybooks today? This is incredible. Even if, okay, someone might look at that and say, okay, fine, but you can't prove that doesn't look West African black, whatever. Okay, it's fine. Who's saying it is? Let's say it's not. But if you're going to depict an accurate Jesus based on what we have, and you're showing somebody that looks something like this, can you go back to that image, brother?
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's more.
And you're showing someone that looks like this on the screen, then a lot of people's views of themselves, a lot of a massive amount of superiority complex would disappear. If you're picking an actor, let me rephrase that. If you're picking an actor who looks anything remotely like what you're seeing right now on your screen, okay, to depict Jesus, I think all of this talk about stop stealing history goes out the window, because here you have a decidedly dark black skinned man being portrayed as Jesus as early as the 4th century AD. So even if he didn't look like me, he still looks a lot closer to me than he does.
Oh no. True black. We got something that looks like you, bro. Let's go. It's not early, but it's scary because this was found in northern Russia, the whitest of white countries, right? This is a 17th century northern Russian depiction of Christ as a child called Christ Emmanuel. And I'm just gonna let it speak for itself. That's in Russia, northern Russia.
Yep. I wish this was a full live now, man. Oh my goodness. This guy looks like sorry. This is why you were never supposed to do this, because this turns someone that is the most estimable individual in all of history and beyond. It turns him into a sort of a laughing thing, but it's not a laughing thing. This is why I believe the scripture said, do not make for yourself graven images. This isn't funny. Okay, my savior was far more glorious looking than this anyway, and you can't portray him in this 2D image properly. But let me tell you something. This guy that I'm looking on the screen right now, what's that show? Different Strokes. Do you remember Different Strokes? Oh, you're too young to know what I'm talking about.
Now, yeah.
Different Strokes, guys. When I edit this back, I'm gonna put the guy from Different Strokes onto the screen. This is, oh man, thank you so much for finding this. Wow.
100%. And I find it interesting.
Why the Russians you know what's funny? Some of the most honest representations of people from that time are from the Russian Orthodox Church. I found that.
Yeah. There are thousands of depictions of the Israelites in Russia, in the Byzantine churches, the Orthodox churches, as the Israelites as a black people. It's all over Russia. Yeah.
Wow.
It's all over. And I just find it interesting that it looks very similar to this found in Ethiopia, which is from the 6th century. So it looks extremely similar to a very early depiction of Christ as well. So I just find that really interesting that for some reason, all the way in Russia, they believe that Christ was black.
Okay, let's just move on. This is wow, absolutely incredible. Okay, what did I want to ask you next? That's just blown my mind. That's completely blown my mind. All right, I've got one more thing for you. Let me make that two quickly. I read how European captives sold into the Maghreb, sold to Maghreb rulers. I did a video recently. When I say recently, maybe okay. I don't know how long ago now, but relatively recently. And in that video, I spoke about the Moors, and I spoke about how a lot of the slaves that were sold into the Maghreb from the European regions at the height of the Arab slave trade, in which they would go and like the Moorish pirates would capture European ships and take women and men, and even go as far as Ireland and the coast of the England to catch white slaves. In the accounts relating to that, whenever they made it into Africa, these slaves, these Caucasian enslaved Caucasian people, whenever they made it into Africa, they actually died en masse because they couldn't handle the heat. They died from disease, and we're talking heat stroke. They just couldn't handle it. This is in the 1600s, 1500s, because a lot of people don't know about that slavery. The slavery went back and it went both ways for a long period. So I'm saying this, and I've butchered what I wanted to say. I've gone about in a very long-winded way. But what I wanted to ask you was, if the Hebrews were the original Hebrews, were say the color of, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, like I imagine then that the Egyptians in Exodus, did they give them sunscreen so they could work more efficiently in the sun? You know,
oh well, I can answer that with a video if that's cool.
Please do.
For sure.
I don't care what you think. The Hebrew Israelites were based Aryan Chads. White power.
Let me ask you something.
No!
I know you know the story of Moses from last time.
I don't care about last time, boy. Moses was white. We was Israelites.
Exodus 4:6-7. As a powerful sign, Yah told Moses to put his hand on his chest area, and when he pulled it out, his hand turned white as snow.
Wait. God just made his hand more white.
Huh?
So you mean to tell me that Moses, a white man, had his white skin turned more white as a powerful sign?
Shut up!
You know what? Maybe you're right.
Yes!
Maybe white is right.
Yes!
Let's prove it.
Finally, you're making sense. We can prove it.
Sure we can. Hebrew slaves were in Egypt for centuries working outdoors 12+ hours a day under extreme heat in the African sun. If whites were Israelites, as you say, wear no suntan lotion, wear no hat, strip to your shorts, and stay in the Egyptian sun for 12 hours a day for just a week.
Well, we're not in Egypt.
I have plane tickets.
This is gonna be too easy. Just watch.
See you in a week.
1 hour later. 1 hour later.
It hurts.
1 hour later.
It hurts.
1 hour later.
Does anyone else smell that? It smells like
2 hours later.
Must have expected. I was going to tell you that white skin is in the Bible. You were right. It's called leprosy.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, if the Israelites were white, if they were fair skinned and they were in the Egyptian suns and they had no suntan lotion, no access to hats, no access to shorts, no covering. I mean, even the depictions of the ancient Israelite slaves on the walls, we know that they only covered their bottom half, and they were in the sun for hours on end, working and doing hard manual labor. they wouldn't last a day. I don't think they would last a day if they were white. In Europe, I mean, we're in the UK. You see suntan. You see pink. People turn pink when they go to the beach. In England, you see white people turn pink. You see them develop blisters. You see them develop skin cancers. I mean, as a matter of fact, the modern state of, I don't know if it might get your, I don't want to get your channel flagged. The modern state of Palestine, we'll say Palestine, right? The people in there are the second highest rate of skin cancer. The first people, the people with the highest amount of skin cancer in the world is Australia. The Australian population, and we know what they did. They replaced the indigenous Australian population, the Aboriginals. So, in places where people who have the color of skin, in places where people have a color of skin that does not benefit the environment that they're in, they have extremely high cases of skin cancer. So, for them to have been in Egypt, being slaves for the Egyptians in the Egyptian sun, the African sun, not the European sun, not the Australian sun, not the Middle Eastern sun, the African sun, for hours on end and survive, it's not a possibility.
Bordering the Sahara.
Oh yeah, bordering the Sahara.
And we've all seen the reliefs and how the Egyptians worked, the ancient Egyptians worked when they were out there in the sun. We've all seen how they worked with topless and with just these loincloths wrapped around them. I don't think they were giving their slaves like cloths to protect them from the sun. And actually, quite the opposite from what I said happened to many European slaves when they were brought over to the Maghreb. Quite the opposite happened to the Israelites. They didn't die. The Bible talks about them, even despite that work, they multiplied even more. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they multiply more. They become more fruitful. Regardless, like they're still being enslaved in Egypt. They go into Egypt. They are completely that they're under the rule of Joseph. Then Joseph dies, right? So
yeah, they multiplied. So, but
yeah.
this is how on the screen was showing how the Egyptians typically worked. You know?
Yeah, I mean these are brick makers. Some speculate that these may be the Israelites being depicted in Egypt. You know, it's still up for speculation, but these are how brick makers would have been in the Egyptian sun.
Wow, that's that close cropped hair that you can see that Africans typically wear when they don't when they can't be bothered to do anything gregarious with their hair. That's that close cropped. There's no frills or frills. It's just a straight cut, you know. And we still have to debate about this. Yo, Brother Dens, aka Ya, is very real. For me, this has been the best live I've ever been part of. This has been the best interview I've ever done. I think maybe a close second is the one I had with Dr. Dana Marnish, the more experts. But this has been by far I don't know, it's been absolutely
I'm honored,
amazing.
brother. I'm honored.
And to let me just say, we didn't even get past part 2. We didn't even finish talking about part 2 of 100 proofs that the Israelites were black on the Ya is Very Real YouTube channel. Check him out, guys. Check him out on Instagram as well. He's also on Twitter. I refuse to call it what it's called now. So, so check him out on all. I think he's on all the socials. He's on TikTok as well. Make sure you subscribe to him and please show him some love in his channel. Drop him a super thanks if you watch his videos. He's doing really, really amazing work. I'd like to say thank you, Brother Dens. I don't know if there's anything you want to say to round off as we close out the live.
Of course. I mean, for you to say that this is one of the best, as a matter of fact, the best live
that
you've
the
done,
best.
that's such an honor to hear, bro. Like, you're honestly, not to glaze or anything, but you are a very big inspiration for me in terms of my research. You know, you being a Black British researcher, and you know, you're exposing the truth of our people, our real history. Like, it's phenomenal. I thank the Most High that you exist, and I thank that your channel exists, and I thank you so much for having me and having this conversation with me, bro. And you know, I would love to do more lives or to do more videos with you in the future. You know, as I said, you're a big inspiration. You know, you're a Black British researcher like me. And shout out to you, bro. Like, keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for having me, bro. And it's such an honor that you've you know, you said I was one of the best. Oh, sorry, the best rather. So thank you again.
Cool. All right, let's end the stream. Thank you, everyone. Kush to Compton. We're taking it all back from Kush all the way to Compton. We're taking it all back. You can bet your house on that, no
Bet
doubt.
on that.
All right, guys, take care.